Hello, welcome back to the Skyrim Archaeological Survey. I'm joined, as ever, by the redoubtable Liv Westring. Hello, Liv.
Hello.
Hello, and this week, or this fortnight, we're going to be examining a wee book. A book that looks like this in the game, and that is called Amongst the Draugr. This is actually based on a recommendation from a wonderful viewer who reminded us that there is a book that does precisely what we were speculating on and joking about last time, and it's essentially uh, a little ethnography, I suppose you could say,
Yeah.
of Draugr. There's some observations made by a Skyrim Draugologist, anthropologist type person, and we couldn't not check this book out. Also, this gives us a little bit of extra time to choose our next tomb as well for surveying. Have you had any thoughts on that yet, Liv? Or
I have.
hmm
I'm thinking that it might be good to either choose a tomb close by or maybe up around the Solitude area.
okay.
Uh, just to get something close by to compare it with,
hmm
or to see what it looks on the other side of the continent.
Okay, that sounds good. So we have our thoughts. If anyone has any particular favourites that they want us to take a look at next or soon as possible, please do comment
Mm-hmm.
below. But before we dive into that, some exciting news on the development of a Skyrim Archaeological Survey patch. I couldn't resist this. I couldn't. It's like we're going into some sort of NASA excursion or
It's so cool.
expeditionary force.
I can't wait.
So I've made two patches so far for you and me, and
Yay.
this is sort of what the patches ish look like. But we're currently going through a bit of R&D, and hopefully in the next month or so we'll have patches available on the Archaeosoup Etsy store. And of course, every patch you guys purchase will be helping Liv and I do this survey in interesting new ways. We may even do some sort of live stream survey as well, actually, at some point. Who knows?
Mm.
Oh, exciting ideas. So, Skyrim Archaeological Survey patch for the win. But this is the book we're going to be looking at today, and we are going to be examining this via the unofficial Elder Scrolls Pages Skyrim Books Library, where they have amassed all of the different titles that you can find in Skyrim by alphabetical order, starting obviously with numbers, as any good alphabetical system does,
Mm-hmm.
and then going through into A, B, C, and so on. And today's book is Amongst the Draugr. It has a value of 14 gold, interestingly. So relatively expensive book, although not as expensive as Avar Stonesinger,
No.
and written by Bernadette Bantien of the College of Winterhold. The subject being discoveries about the Draugr and their link to the dragon cults. Oh,
Very topical.
very topical. Now, actually, before we dive into the contents of the book, I've recently also been playing a little bit of Elder Scrolls Online, which has been interesting. And
Mm-hmm.
it's been a while since I've played an MMORPG. A MMORPG. And it was interesting because it starts out on an island which isn't on the Skyrim map proper. It's a sort of an island that's part of the Skyrim province, but it's just off the coast of Tamriel. And in the opening section of that game, you have to interact with a dragon lord who occupies a tomb and whose body is being interfered with by a necromancer. So that was an
Ooh.
interesting bit of. That was an interesting moment earlier this week, but unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, Liv, I'm really not particularly enjoying the Elder Scrolls Online. Uh, Not compared to something like Red Dead Redemption 2 or
Mhm.
uh, Zelda Breath of the Wild. Have you tried Elder Scrolls Online at all?
I don't do MMORPGs,
Is this be-
period.
is this possibly because for the same reason that I don't necessarily like them, in so much as it feels like pointless busy work?
Well, no, it's more like when I game, I usually go really hard into the RPGs
Ah, yes.
part
Uh
of
huh.
things,
Uh huh.
and to be frank, I don't like to be bothered by other people.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's something about the fact that when you're playing Elder Scrolls Online and trying to do a little bit of RPGing, getting into that role, you it's hard not to be distracted by the fact that someone comes along and they're talking to someone who isn't there yet for you, or they're interacting with an object that you just interacted with, and you're meant to be doing this uniquely in your story. You know, you're meant to be the hero of this story, and yet someone else is there doing. So I played the interesting bit as far as I'm concerned, and that is the Skyrim bit. And then as soon as we got to Tamriel, I'm afraid I just had to put it down.
I mean, I imagine it could be more fun if you had like your own party and you did like stuff together like that. But
Yeah, well, and unfortunately, so that's the thing, because I was going to ask if you could join my party, but I was playing on PlayStation and they don't do crossplay with PC.
Indeed.
So anyway, it was interesting. It was interesting though, as far as this is concerned, because I think some of the stuff that I was doing with this Dragon Lord, who was calling me a maggot, incidentally, maggot.
He's probably a few thousand years old. So.
Yeah, he's got some issues. Ties in, I think, with what's going on here, and also hopefully this book will answer some of our questions about the nature of the Draugr. So let's begin. So Bernadette begins her book as follows: It wasn't until my 7th month with the creatures, 7 months, that they seemed to accept me. Well, accept isn't really the proper word, but they seemed to have decided that I posed no threat to them and gradually ceased their attacks.
I must say, this is dedication to your project.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, imagine like checking in with your advisor and he's going like, "So Bernadette, how is it going? Have you done any progress on your little anthropological survey of Draugr?" And you're like, "Well, they seem to have starting to cease their attacks."
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Last night I got some sleep.
They do not see me as a threat anymore.
And also,
that's good.
So, I mean, if you were an anthropologist studying an isolated tribe in South America or the South Sea Islands or something, and it took 7 months before they stopped attacking you.
No. When 7 months until they gradually cease to attack you.
Exactly. Just 7 months of being attacked. You would that would take, as you say, dedication. Though more than capable of fending them off, with a combination of fire and turning spells being generally sufficient, I admit that I tired of having to be ever vigilant in their presence, as you would.
I can imagine.
Yeah. I'll never know whether there was some sort of agreement communicated among them, for the only utterances they make seem to be that in heathen tongue that I can't even pronounce, much less transcribe. Actually, that's a good point. Do you think the Draugr have language?
Apparently.
Yeah. Because
they seem to do some kind of communication.
Yeah, it's like a throat, sort of guttural kind of... that kind of thing, in time, I learned more of their intentions toward me from their general movements and tones rather than specific words. Hostility in any creature is easily read, but in these most peculiar of the living dead, with such variations in gait and speed, what amounts to a hostile charge in one may simply be a casual movement in another. The eyes seem to be key to their intent, and I will confess to more than one dream haunted by the glowing pinpoints in the darkness. Yeah, no, I can imagine that. Do you think? I mean, what would be your tactic if you had to spend 7 months in a tomb, but hopefully with food deliveries as well? You're not just eating moss, but like, what would you? How would you go about doing it?
I mean, from an anthropological standpoint, I would probably try to be invisible as much of the time as I can.
Okay, so high sneak, as it were.
High sneak. Some illusion spells.
Oh yeah.
I would also recommend turning spells rather than attacking when defending yourself, since you want to leave as little of an imprint as possible on
Yeah, and if
the
you
thing
want,
you're searching.
yeah, and if you want to have any hope of them not, of them accepting you, yeah, I suppose that makes
Hmm.
sense. Although, oddly enough, I was going entirely practical in terms of I would just try and make a hammock and
Yeah,
hang
I
from the
would
ceiling.
probably try to make like a bird's nest
Yeah, yeah,
somewhere
yeah,
where
like
I
a,
know that they can't get to me.
yeah,
So I have one point where I know I can relax,
yes,
where
absolutely,
I'm
yeah,
safe.
yeah.
Because without that one point, I would probably go insane in 7 months. Like paranoia would be an understatement.
Without a doubt, yeah, and also, I mean, hope presumably as well. She must have been leaving and coming back because you can't spend 7 months underground, surely. But I don't know. Maybe she'll go into that. I suppose. I had always wondered why the ancient priests of the dragon cult insisted that their followers be buried with them. It seems the height of pagan vanity to drag your conscripts to their death along with you. But as I integrated into their presence, I began to observe the reasons. Every day, a different set of Draugr would awaken.
Hmm.
Oh, oh, that is interesting. Shamble their way to the sarcophagus of their priest and prostrate themselves before it.
Ooh.
Oh, now that is interesting, given what we were
It's
looking at.
very interesting.
That might. Do you remember the platform where we were joking about, or we were sort of musing on with a bit of humour about people being strapped and
Hmm.
forced to do something? Maybe that is actually what is going on there. They're not saying that they're being strapped, but they are turning up to focus on the upright sarcophagi in that room. But then later
Hmm.
on, the focus being towards the I suppose the one or maybe the three sarcophagi in the penultimate room of the first
Yeah.
tomb could be precisely this. Yeah, prostrate themselves before it, and it also that implies again, if in terms of this question of language, it also implies intent. I suppose
Hmm.
in terms so much as they're probably not, well, hopefully not just emptily like puppets turning up and acting out worship, in so much
Yeah.
as they're probably actually thinking about what they're doing and going through
Hopefully.
it. Several hours of this, followed by a meticulous cleaning of the area.
Oh.
Wow. And that also explains why candles are lit
Yes.
in
Yes,
these
it does.
tombs. Because that was something I've been wondering about, and I've been a bit scared to actually bring up because I didn't want to completely break the illusion that this is a computer game. That's a good point, yeah. So maybe the Draugr themselves, in that sense, they're maintaining a biome. Isn't
They
it?
are.
Yeah, interesting. It would appear that the adherents of the dragon priest continue their worship of him in death, which would also explain the ferocity with which they defend his chambers.
Indeed.
It took several weeks before I felt comfortable approaching the dragon priest's resting place myself, inch by inch, until the snarling Draugrs around me seemed to tire of fending off my timid presence.
Maybe we have been going at this the whole with the wrong approach. Maybe if you don't attack, you just cover in fear
Yeah,
and
yeah.
try to like inch your way through the dungeons. Maybe you don't have to fight them.
Indeed, yeah, must cower more. I was able to set some simple scrying spells around the tomb, that I might get a sense of what magical energies resided there. When the next group of Draugr came to pay homage to the priest, I noted a sort of transferal happening, a distinct flow of life force between the adherents and the master. Interesting. Now, do you think there she's implying the direction being from the adherents to the master, or from the
I
master to
think
the
so.
adherents? Right. So what then do we think the master requires?
I mean, it could be that they are sustaining his life force with their own in some way. Some
Hmm.
kind of long game necromancy.
So maybe almost like a blood transfusion.
Yeah.
So swapping, or infected for clean blood, like that kind of idea.
Yeah, maybe.
Something like that. It was here that I finally understood the dragon cult's notion of resurrection. The second eternal life was only promised to those who ascended to the priesthood. but the lesser functionaries contributed their life force to sustaining them for eternity. Oh, so, and that's actually that's quite an old magical or sort of mythological concept, isn't it? This idea of eternal life having a high price.
Yeah.
Yes, and in order for some to live, many must die. Actually, there's a really good, well, quite a good movie called In Time, starring Justin Timberlake. No, but it is good. And in that movie, instead of money, they're all trading time, and they have a little sort of inbuilt LED readout on their wrists, and you can earn time by going to a job, and in that sense, in a very literal way, just as we sell our time to employers, they are buying or earning time by working.
Interesting.
But your clock is always running down, and so maybe a cup of coffee is 30 seconds, or buying a big house will be 5 years of time. This kind of thing.
That's fucking horrifying.
It is horrifying. It is. But the crucial thing though is that in that world, there are some people who are effectively immortal. Because they're able to control this economy. They're always able to skim off the top.
Billionaires,
precisely. And so some people are in fact absolutely immortal. And so there's a point early on in the film where Justin Timberlake, can't remember what his character name is, where he is bequeathed a ridiculous amount of time on his arm, or to his arm, by a billionaire, effectively a billionaire, who is tired of immortality. And he talks about how in order for the few to live forever, many must die. And it's interesting, it just sort of reminded me of this notion here. And presumably people, do you think there's an element here, I wonder if there's an element here that's also similar to ancient Egypt, whereby the effort put into making sure that certain people, especially the pharaoh, managed to reach a certain place in order to sort of negotiate with the gods on behalf of the living in Egypt. Do you think that the dragon priests' followers are entirely happy about this? That they understand that they're all just going to be sort of batteries for their leader forever, and
well, I would hope that they at least are under some sort of notion that they're doing it for the right reasons, and that's it. It's worth it, and that they're not being like forced to it.
No.
Because being forced into a Draugr state for eternity to sustain someone else's life force sounds like a pretty bad deal.
Well, that's the thing, doesn't it? It does sound like a pretty bad deal. It sounds like a less. Well, it sounds like somewhere between a zombie and a vampire, but you get none of the benefits.
It sounds like a pyramid scheme.
A pyramid scheme, yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, definitely. Actually, can you especially some salesman going, "Hi, brother, you look down on your luck. I've got the perfect lifestyle for you. Just come along to our meetings."
Do you want to live forever?
Yeah, exactly. Do you want to live forever? Okay, sustaining them for eternity. I don't know what sort of eternal wellspring they draw from, but it's clear that each Draugr carries only the barest whisper of life in it, and rekindles it nightly while resting in its niche. I now believe that the grotesque forms that we see in the barrows were in fact buried fully as men and women, and only over thousands of years have passed withered into the wretched things that we know. If we had visited a barrow directly after its construction, we might not have even known any of its inhabitants were dead.
That's interesting.
That is interesting. So in that sense, then maybe, do you think she's implying that this process was happening right from the beginning, and that actually these people would be waking up and would look quite fresh?
Yes. I also think it's implied that everyone got there at the same time.
So, much more akin to a time capsule or an ark, or a bunker,
like
or
a vault in Fallout.
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking. Vault in Fallout. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so now, wow, that's interesting. And so I wonder what does that imply for the sort of those opening sections of the tomb
Yeah.
at Ivarstead, in so much as is that for people who are monitoring these vaults, as it were, monitoring
Hmm.
these giant batteries, these generators of life for the dragon priests. Hmm.
And I mean, it's also, I mean, it's a whole nother thing if you think about like people that look like they're alive
Hmm. Hmm.
and meeting them inside of that instead of the Draugr.
Yeah. No, it is. But also, that said, though, even from the beginning, there's an implication that they understand that these people are not alive, and that they are and or will become very dangerous
Yes.
in terms of the layout of the tombs. And
I mean, it's possible that they already were. I mean, Nord culture has a rich history when it comes to warriors and to battle.
mm, mm,
So those that we see as the stronger or more dangerous Draugr now could have been like the top performing warriors of that cult.
okay, yeah. So sort of this is sort of like a pre-Sovereign Guard or
Yeah,
Valhalla type thing, where the best are picked for this version of immortality.
yeah, and also that they seem to have different jobs.
Yeah, no, that's true. Well, and also it's interesting because if you recall the tidbit that I shared with you about how in game the Draugr are um, constructed procedurally. So the different
Hmm.
body parts, the combinations of man's head and woman's body are
Yeah,
entirely procedural. It's interesting how that that implies that changes can occur in these people's bodies over time as well,
yeah,
presumably. So you may, yeah, and therefore, I wonder if it's possible to change your role within Draugr hierarchy. Then, you see what I mean? So,
hmm,
so as you say, if they're performing roles when they go in, and there's this element of cleaning the spaces and all this sort of malarkey, I wonder if it's possible to go up and down in I don't know
yeah.
in your
Or if they
shift
stay stagnant.
if they stay stagnant. Yeah, interesting. These discoveries and extrapolations excite me, and my mind aches to return to the Barrows. Is that implying that she's become a bit institutionalized? I can't deal with it outside. There's just too much air, and
I
there's
mean, I imagine that it's just, a nerd being a nerd.
yeah, quite possibly.
She has found some very interesting and groundbreaking things.
Well, she has, and also actually she's outlined here a something that's somewhere between a culture, a behaviour, a uh, uh, a hive-like setup. Um, yeah, so okay, I can understand her being excited. I have only paused here at the college to transcribe these notes and gather further supplies for a more extended stay. My new hope is to learn some rudimentary way of speaking to them, for imagining what they could tell us of the early mists of time is staggering.
And I agree, that would be amazing.
That would be amazing, yes. How often would you say that you um, wish you could talk to people in the past?
Oh, every time I think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if you could, like, anything. I mean, the perspective of someone who was actually there will always be staggering
hmm hmm
compared to what is remembered throughout history.
Yeah. No. Definitely, and I often think actually that the more mundane aspects of life that just simply haven't been preserved in any way would be astonishing to hear about as well.
Yeah.
It's especially so I know a classic example and also a classical example would be from the Roman world where the people writing don't really know or care about how farming is done or how
Hmm.
different everyday processes occur, and yet it'd be wonderful to be able to interview people. Although that said, I would not like to time travel. I've often reflected on how I'd be terrified of getting an illness or something. And
I would imagine that I would actually like go against my incredible fear of needles and get every vaccine in the history of mankind before doing that.
yeah, no, definitely. Well, yes, yeah, and then
Do
maybe.
you have a vaccine for the bubonic plague?
Yeah, bubonic-
Great.
yeah.
Inject me.
All of the injections. So I just clicked on Bernadette Bantian here, and this is just goes to another list of the books by author. So sadly, we don't seem to know much about her as a person. But
what I've found is that she's a Breton mage, and that she's a scholar of the College of Winterhold.
Oh, okay.
There is no telling if she survived that last journey.
Ah, and is that sort of like a ... type thing? Or...
Well, she's only written one book, so either she's very current and still out there.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Even if you
went into a burrow and suddenly you heard someone go, "What the fuck? Get out of here!
Indeed,
You're disturbing my studies."
I was just developing a Draugr sign language, and you completely ruined it.
Oh, but I speak dragon. I think they speak dragon too.
Yeah.
Can I teach you? I'm sorry, I disturbed.
Well, because actually, that's something that is worthwhile. That is worthwhile remembering is that the dragon priests, they shout at you in dragon language when you wake them up, and so even though the Draugr don't seem to be talking that language, as you say, they probably would understand an element of it. And
it would at least have some cultural significance to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder
even if they don't understand it, maybe they would assume that you are a priest, and thus...
And then start worshipping you, Life could be worse. Well, actually, there you go. Star Trek question, or Star Trek style question. Where do you stand on the ethics of not so much being an anthropologist and bumping into people who start worshipping you, a la cargo cults or this kind of thing, but how would you feel if in like a Stargate type scenario, if people from essentially an ancient type of culture mistook you for a god?
I would be uncomfortable.
Okay, fair enough. But if it stopped them killing you, that would be okay.
Yeah, I mean it could have its perks.
Yeah,
like them not killing you. It could also be highly problematic, as we have seen in many Star Trek episodes.
That's true. Yes. As Picard, I do believe, once got very angry about it. He was, I will not pretend to be a god, just accept these people back by 100 years. So, yeah, you've got to have.
Or
ethics.
the classical thing that you accidentally start like religious wars because someone else is coming down on another site, and they start to worship them, and then this group worships you, and then they start to fight, and you stand there going, "Oh no!"
Yeah. But also,
Please.
ironically, though, they would be entirely legitimate religious beliefs because they will have had someone just turn up and go, "Hi."
So I just beamed down here. I have miraculous cures for every illness you have ever met.
Yep.
And I can shoot fire out of something that I point at you.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't initially, at least, be highly impressed, to say the least?
Indeed.
So yeah. So I wonder if you were to turn up and start speaking dragon at. But again, see that there's also an element here, isn't there, of them being withered, because you can speak dragon, you can shout at them, or do a shout, as it were, not just shout at them. You can do a dragon shout, and they won't respond to you. They won't take those words as commands. They respond to the physical impact of those words, obviously by falling over.
Maybe you're just shit at speaking dragon.
That could be it. Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing about the shout is that you have like one specific word.
Yeah.
That you can hone the power of.
Yeah.
that will have that effect. It's not. I mean, you're basically screaming like "fly, fly, fly" at them.
Poop, 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 and they'll just be
It's
like,
not
what?
like you're asking them
Yeah,
how they're
exactly.
doing.
Poop. I wonder. Yeah, that was the interesting dragon shout, wasn't it? Just go into a bar maybe in Whiterun, just go poop, and everyone just evacuates themselves. Sorry, I've gone straight to the
It's fine, it's
scatological.
fine.
Despicable, despicable. But yeah, I think there's quite a lot here actually that has been interesting, and in particular, I think I like this idea of when we go into tombs, this idea of them being sealed, as I say, little biomes where there is shift work happening. I do think maybe we should then, in terms of mindset, be thinking of these as if we are visiting something like a beehive or an anthill or something.
Maybe. I also think that it puts a whole nother perspective of going in there. Actively.
Oh, sorry.
And put.
What was that? Sorry, the signal went a bit funny.
Yeah, you're essentially going in and snuffing out a religious practice that has actively been going on for thousands of years.
That's a good point. Yeah, you're snuffing out the yeah. Goodness me, that's.
I mean, of course, in-game Draugr respawn after 30 days, but maybe they do that in canon as well. That you really can't kill them.
Possibly not. Yeah, maybe you can't actually permanently interrupt their routine. But that's an interesting point, actually, as well.
The big boss, though, never comes back. So maybe you snuff out his eternal life, but they continue in some kind of residual haunting. Or maybe.
So you render their sacrifice meaningless.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Although actually, also as well, in this context, it's worthwhile remembering those the carvings, the sort of the with kings and things being carried on people's shoulders. Again, I think it speaks about that focus as well in terms of hierarchy and the purpose of the dead within the tomb. So yeah, okay, there's some ethical things, some cultural things there. But I've quite enjoyed that. Thank you very much for the suggestion of this book. It's been well worth checking out, and yeah, definitely do comment below in terms of which tomb we should go and visit next, because we haven't fully decided, and if you can think of something better than us for our second tomb, then we're more than happy to dive in, and also keep an eye out for the Skyrim Archaeological Survey patches coming soon. Thank you for your time this afternoon, Liv. It's been a pleasure. And,
Same.
Well, thank you. And yes, we'll see you all next time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.